Hello, guys. Happy Sunday. If we haven't met before, my name's Kalen.
My name's Anthony.
I just met him today, and I thought he was cute, so I invited him over to help lead meditation with me. He brought with him his puppy.
It's true.
Yeah, so that's
Menage a trois.
that's true. That's Ava. She's also with us for meditation today. No, in all seriousness, this is my gorgeous husband. I married him because he's very attractive, and for no other reason. And it's an honor to get to be here with you today. Every Sunday, I try to set aside some time here on YouTube to do some group meditation work. Each week, we pick a theme and go from there. This week, I chose the topic of when you feel like a hot mess, which I've been feeling a lot of lately.
Emphasis on hot.
Oh, well, thank you. I pay him for those sort of comments. No, seriously. So I've just been feeling like there's been a lot of, well, I'm sure we all have, right? We just got done with holiday season. A lot of us spend time with families, and families I know for both of us tend to be very triggering. And it can leave us feeling a little discombobulated, a little bit like I'm not in my best self, I'm not the most centered, I'm not the most grounded, I'm not the most joyful. A lot of times traveling and going to visit people can bring stuff up. I know we had some really big drama stuff with some friends back home. And so I've been just kind of feeling kind of not myself, a little messy, a little discombobulated.
I think too, it's also a season of transition, right? Winter is about death and coming into and preparing for a season of rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's also very important for us to honor the cycle of life and where we're at. So I think it's, I know I've been talking to a lot of people and just feeling this place of transition. Like something good is coming, but we're not quite there yet. And we're experiencing kind of the darkness of winter. So
The darkness of our souls.
the shadow.
The shadow. The night. The dark night of our soul. So that's our theme for this week. Mazel tov, welcome. So glad you're here with us. Please get comfortable, grab a puppy, put it on your lap, and gently stroke it if you'd like. You can lie down, you can sit upright, you can sit on the floor, sit in a chair, do what makes you feel good. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy life to join us. Welcome. It's so nice to have you. So we often just begin by taking a couple deep breaths. And try not to be distracted by my husband's beautiful pecs. I know I am. And just settle in. Notice how are you, where are you, what's going on for you. If you're clicked on this video because you're feeling like a hot mess, if you turn your focus within and say, oh dear Lord, I do not want to see any of that, that's okay too. Whenever we start a journey of transformation, one of the important things is to really just find acceptance of wherever you are. So many of us resist our current state. We want to be elsewhere. We fight against being where we are. But really change starts with accepting your given circumstances. So allow yourself to be. Allow yourself to exist, and whatever you're experiencing, let it be okay. And remind yourself that the journey is long, that I know we're often eager to get to some illustrious destination where we have it all figured out and everything's wonderful and perfect and aligned, and we are perfect and aligned in ourselves. But this isn't a very, very long road we're walking. We've been walking it from before we can even remember. We'll be walking it after we're gone. And so getting comfortable with the discomfort, being comfortable with saying everything is not perfect or ideal, and that's okay. It's okay to be where you are. I don't know about you, Anthony, but one of the things I often find frustrating about the spiritual community is this idea that you should be always able to fully fix everything, that you should be able to heal yourself fully, that you should be able to have the perfect life, the perfect job, the perfect house, the perfect partner, the perfect dog. And if for some reason you haven't achieved that, then that's some sort of failure of yours as a spiritual being, as someone manifesting your own reality. Do you ever find that? Do you ever find a frustration with that, or not so much?
I think that was something that didn't resonate with me with Christianity, was this idea, or at least the way I interpreted my experience in Christianity, was that this life, this one life, was meant to get it quote unquote right, so that you could kind of transition into heaven or whatever your afterlife would be. And that just didn't seem like a, one, doable thing, and two, something that resonated with me. And I think that's what I really found comfort in, because there was an intuitive knowing that this was a process and there was no right about it. That Eastern sort of religion and spirituality aligned with, and what created a better context for understanding why we go through what we do. And this world and this life, and it's a continual process. So I do find it frustrating when there's a, and I was thinking as you were starting off this particular meditation about where this idea of perfection comes from, and I really do feel like it's driven by consumer culture, right? That if only you buy this thing or you're able to do this external thing, this will make you closer to perfection, which drives this need or desire to constantly consume. And I do find that there isn't about the destination as much as it's the journey and the process and the growth. And so yes, I do find that there's some frustration in our culture, or at least the way in which I encounter our culture, which is you have one life to get it right, and we need to do whatever we can to do it, and here are all the things and steps and ways to do it. And that just doesn't feel aligned.
You bring up for me something I've been reflecting on a lot lately, which is this idea of looking back into earlier phases of my life, and phases where I was very discontented and feeling like there was so much I hadn't figured out or had it the way I wanted. And I look back now and say, I wish I could have seen and appreciated the beauty, the blessings, the magnificence in that moment. And I couldn't, whether that was, being on tour with a Shakespeare production through the Rocky Mountains and so frustrated by the experience, but now looking back and saying, my God, I was in such beautiful places and having such memorable and life-changing moments, or even body stuff, like looking back at earlier iterations of me and saying, I wish I could have seen myself as beautiful back then. I know a lot of us have that experience. We look back at younger photos and say, why didn't I see myself as being so cute? Like I thought I wasn't, and I look back now and say, oh, if only.
Those were my cute days.
Those were my cute days. Youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of what they say, hindsight is a gift, right? Like the ability to look back and say, I can use this experience of looking back and realizing that even in the messiness, even in the difficulty, there was beauty, perfection, sacredness. And if that was true then, how much that also must be true now.
Yeah,
and
but our culture doesn't teach that, right? Like we're not taught to be content. We're not taught to slow down. One, that's not good for consumer culture. Yeah. To be content with what you have is not going to sell.
no,
Uh,
we'll ruin our economy.
Yeah, and two, it's just you know, it's counterculture to do what we're talking about, which is unfortunate. But I think that's what makes that tension heightened, is because we're going against the grain when you're talking about slowing down or appreciating or being grounded or being present, because our culture is all about looking forward and progressing and
Yeah.
you know, moving as opposed to slowing.
And truthfully, to have a deeply fulfilling life, you have to be willing to say, I'm going to be going against what culture tells me. Like, I was saying this to someone earlier today, that if you do everything society tells you need to do, then you are not going to be well and happy. Like, if you follow the narrative society gives you, you're basically fucked. Like, you have to go against it, more or less, in order to find a sustainable, joyful, contented, slow life. Because otherwise you're going to be addicted to social media and buying more shit than you need and comparing yourself to everyone else and working a job you probably don't like. And
Yeah, and I don't know, you know, I want to reflect and slow down too, in that I don't know if it's necessarily going against it as much as being intentional, right? I think it's really about understanding what part of it that you want. It's like going into a grocery store and really being intentional about what you buy and not just buying what's put in front of you.
Yeah.
And so it's not that you don't go into the grocery store. Like, we need to go into society. We live among people and we need to. But how do we be intentional about what part of this really vast amount of choices that we have are we going to take in and adopt?
Well, and I like the metaphor that you use, because if you just bought all the things that are up at the front of the grocery store on sale, what they're telling you should buy, you're going to end up with like a basket full of chips and cookies and things that you probably don't necessarily need, versus consciously going through the store and choosing what you want.
Yeah.
Nice metaphor. All right, so with all that discussion in mind, turn back to focusing within if you're not already. And notice the places you currently feel discontented. Notice where you within yourself just feel a little, or a little, or a little, ooh. Sound effects included. And just say to yourself, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to be where I am. It's okay to feel what I do. It's okay to experience whatever it is I'm experiencing. There is grace here. There is blessings here. There is love here. There is divine support here. There is majesty here, even if I don't fully see it. And I think this is a very fundamental paradigm shift. Is to see your life as one as being supremely blessed. To see your life as something where the divine is taking care of you. Where you are being cared for, nourished, held by something greater than yourself. Versus seeing your life as, I'm alone on a little blue planet in the middle of a universe where other life may or may not exist and no one cares for me. I remember at my college graduation, one of the smaller ceremonies just for my particular school within the university, one of the speeches was from a former professor who said, all your life you've had people caring for you and taking care of you and guiding you. And you're about to step into a world where no one gives a shit about you. And no one cares if you succeed, and no one cares if you survive. And I remember thinking, God, that's bleak. And I fundamentally don't believe that. Like, I really do believe that we are all deeply, deeply interconnected in something vast and otherworldly. And I really do feel sorry for the people who do believe that they're fully alone on this planet, because that is a terrifying notion to have. But if you believe that your life is a miracle, and there is a force, whether you want to call it God or karma or Gaia or the universe or Satan, I don't care, whatever, that is looking out for you, the life becomes a much more different place to exist in. So can you see the perfection in where you are? Can you see the miracles in being where you are? And even if you're a hot mess, even if you don't know what's going on, even if you're frustrated as heck by whatever's going on for you, can you take a moment and find some gratitude? Can you take a moment and see the divine intervention in play? Can you see how blessed you are, even if it doesn't fully make sense? Even if you struggle to believe it? One of the moments in my life I've been reflecting on in the last couple days is my leaving the spiritual community I was a part of for most of my 20s. And for those of you who don't know, I lived in an ashram for 7 years. I had a guru for almost a decade. And there was so much about that community and that tradition that I loved. And I loved the people, I loved the chanting and the teachings and the connection to God that I experienced. But it was also a very limiting tradition, because you had to give up all your power to the guru. You had to do whatever they said. You lost all agency. In many ways, any growth was due to them, not because of your own efforts. And as I got closer and closer to the center of that tradition, the more I saw that the people running it had some, let's just say they were very human. And there was a lot of pain they were inflicting on people they should have been protecting. And when I was told to leave and never come back, my world shattered. And the amount of emotional pain I went through is pretty indescribable. But as I look back, even in my messiest moments due to that, I see how that was exactly what I needed to get me to where I needed to go. That I had grown in that tradition as much as I probably could have for the most part. And the next stages of my growth were learning to reclaim my power, to trust myself, to realize that I was responsible for my growth, not this other person. And those messiest moments ended up being the beginning of something wonderful, even though I couldn't see it. And, I think in many points in my life, and I think this is true even in our relationship, oftentimes the most difficult, the most chaotic, the messy bits have ended up leading to really beautiful periods on the other side. And it's almost like it creates the compost that the plants then are able to grow out of.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very true that growth is uncomfortable.
A lot of the time, not always, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, discomfort doesn't necessarily have to be painful, right? But comfort means that you're settled in something that is stable, and growth is something that is unstable, right? And so instability for many of us is fearful, or it comes with a lot of angst, and some of us instability is invigorating, right? But either way, it's not comforting. It's not the most comfortable thing.
Yeah.
And so I do find that in our relationship or periods of life where there's an immense amount of stress, and stress is normally induced by discomfort, we can come through and see something, if we're able to kind of stick with it, something beautiful that grows up from that. So, no, I agree. I think, and something else I was thinking about as you were talking was to remind ourselves what we have control over, what we don't have control over, right? I was just looking at a visual, and it was a depiction of kind of the things that we have control over, our thoughts, how we feel about something, right? And the things that we don't have control over are what's going on externally, you know, what outcomes, those sorts of things. So it was just a really good reminder for me about when things feel messy. Many of the times the mess is out there, and do we bring it in here? And we have complete control if we bring it in here. So.
You remind me of also one of my favorite things is the serenity prayer.
Mm-hmm.
God, give me the grace to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yep.
So long story short, you're a hot mess. We're a hot mess. The dog's a hot mess. She's peeing and pooping everywhere. And all is well. All has been well. All will be well. All is well. You know, I think it's a fundamental aspect of being human, and the experience of our humanness is to relish in our imperfections, to realize that we are constantly works in progress, that we're going to engage with discomfort fairly regularly, and we're not always going to be at our best. And I think that's a really difficult thing to remember when we live in a world that projects ads and curated social media platforms and TV shows where everybody's glossy and shiny and beautiful and seemingly has all their shit together, and you watch news articles about this 16-year-old who just became famous for some shit they invented, and you're like, what am I doing with my life? What's wrong with me? Why am I not that? As opposed to when we have real human connections, when we sit with others at dinner or by a fire or on a walk, and we share our struggles, we share our humanity, and realize that we're all just figuring it out as best we can.
I think some of the most attractive qualities in someone is humility, courage, vulnerability. I think those are the three probably most attractive things. And they're all just a little bit acknowledging our, infallibleness. But how do we do that all with grace, right? Grow with grace.
I'm also going to add to that list kindness.
Yes.
I think kindness is a very underrated, sexy quality. It's actually going to be the topic of this next week's video. Hey. Oh, you can see why I love him. He's so wise and pretty.
Yeah.
Thank you all for taking some time out of your busy life to join us for a little philosophizing and meditation. I hope you found this useful. If ever you want to go deeper with this work, you can always reach out to me to work one-on-one. You can also check me out on Patreon and all my other social platforms. Good luck finding him on social media because he doesn't exist there. So you'll have to join him here to hear his little beautiful thoughts. Anyhow, I'm Kaylin.
I'm Anthony.
This is Ecstatic Self. Thank you so much for your heart, your light, and you being you. I'm always floored and humbled by the beautiful letters I receive from you all, telling me about the work you're doing and the growth you're experiencing and how you're working to become your most luminous self. So thank you always for sharing your journey with us, and I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful week. Happy January, happy 2023, happy winter. Stay warm, stay dry, stay happy, and may you be blessed. So much love for you. Thanks, guys.